Rape has become a shameful reality on many college campuses.
Rape is not the only shameful reality related to sexual harassment on many college campuses.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, Mark, and I too will welcome you to another program of the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We're so very glad you've joined us. Today's topic might not be so controversial, but it is very sensitive and very important, so I'm glad that you've joined us for this discussion. Now, before we get started, I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do. So we'll begin with the gentleman to my right.
I'm Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
I'm Rabbi Jordan Ofsire, a retired rabbi living in Palm Springs, teaching and leading services within the community.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and I serve as the senior minister of First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Carl Troval. I'm Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
My name is Canon John Peterson, and I'm a priest in the Episcopal Diocese of Washington.
I'm Alan Lane, pastor of Fort Graham Baptist Church in the lovely Lake Whitney area of Central Texas.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here for another discussion at the Town Hall. If you're ready to begin, we shall do so. Not long ago, one of the university cities in the U.S. was named by some the rape capital of the U.S. Certainly an unfortunate nickname. However, it now appears that for young beginning college girls, college campuses can or have become hazardous places, as stated in Time magazine in May 6, 2014. Research indicates that 1 in 5 women is, quote, the victim of attempted or completed sexual assault during college, close quote, without their willingness. It is obvious that alcohol or drugs play a big role in all this violence problem. Fortunately, research seems to indicate that a large portion of these offenses are committed by a relatively small group of men. Many suggestions have been made as solutions to the growing problems, such as required reporting of these crimes, actions, or tricks, as some call them, to stop the predators, emergency plans, urging victims to report the crimes, or installing emergency phones, dealing with binge drinking parties. Actually, a big problem has been the non-reporting by victims to either the school authorities or to police. Another problem is the fear of bad publicity affecting the image or bottom line of a respected university. Today, I'm asking our panelists to consider these 3 questions. First of all, are American colleges dangerous places for young women? Second question, should not all students, women and men, feel safe on a university campus, and thus should a basic administrative task of a president be to see that his or her university is safe? And finally, can one consent when incapacitated? Let's return now to those who made our opening statements to begin our program. We'll go back to Dr. Troval, and you're on a campus, by the way, Dean Troval.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that this is not a problem on your campus, but if it is, let's discuss some of those issues we've opened up here and see if we can find some solutions.
I don't consider it a problem on our campus, but if you saw the Austin American-Statesman, it actually had an article that talked about the number of assaults that had occurred on the various campuses in Texas, in Central Texas. And you can see that there are incidents on all the campuses. And one of the reasons I suspect is because you have to consider the situation on a college campus. For the first time, young people have a lot of freedom without this kind of parental parameters or social parameters that they've had. There is higher alcoholic and drug consumption. There is an excitement about the freedom that people have. There are insecurities about boundaries and how to say no and when to say no. People are also oftentimes away from any kind of scrutiny. There's also, if someone gets into for instance, if you're out and you feel like you shouldn't have been drinking, and you're out drinking and then you get into trouble, you don't want to all of a sudden, to talk about something in a sexual assault that happened means that all of a sudden you're going to bring in a whole bunch of your friends into this issue with the security and the police. You're going to embarrass yourself in front of your parents, in front of other people. So there's a strong desire oftentimes to not report. And I think, therefore, it is the university's responsibility to try to do something significant to prevent this from happening. And I mean, the state does require, if any kind of assault happens, there's a law that you have to actually notify everyone on the campus that an assault has happened, even while it's being investigated. There are one of the things at Concordia that I think we really try to do is to try to educate the students about boundaries, particularly when they go out and when something becomes uncomfortable and how to say no in an assertive and appropriate way, whether the person is male or female, because rapes don't happen just to women. And in other words, there's a strong educational component here. There needs to be an openness, and it also needs to be a non-shaming of people. I mean, this is also part of a broader cultural thing, is that oftentimes a woman who's been raped is shamed, like it's somehow her fault. And there's huge cultural things that we're working on to try to help prevent this.
Well, thank you very much. Very insightful. Appreciate that. Now let's come back over to Alan. And Dr. Lane, what is your position on this? You kind of opened things up a little more for us.
Yeah, the college campus becomes something of a petri dish of issues that are wrong with our culture that can be amplified in that setting. Carl just mentioned that there's a larger culture at play here, and that is exactly what I'm saying, is that there's more than just the actual crime of non-consensual sex. It has to do with a whole culture of things that in many cases we might find to not necessarily be acceptable but tolerable, like issues related to just general locker room type humor. Making comments about other people sexually and feeling like that's okay, like that's just a part of growing up in a campus setting. Writing it off to the male temperament, the boys will be boys, sort of thing. That it's okay because the people that participate in on campus are young. Or from the female point of view, that the experimentation is okay until it gets uncomfortable and it gets out of bounds. Well, maybe it ought to be out of bounds sooner. Maybe those boundaries ought to be better defined. There's the issue of acting as if it's instinctual instead of the result of choices. Choices of where you are and who you're with and what you're doing, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the middle of a crime. Maybe this applies to a broader set of issues than just sexual crime. But teenagers and college students looking at as members of the opposite sex as objects or prizes or rewards or conquests, if college could do anything, if the college setting could do anything to improve this culture, it would be to articulate in a better way that college is not a place for sexual experimentation. It's a place to develop relationships, friendships, and maybe we've lost that art of the collegiality. That's even the term that we use, of learning what it is to be friends with members of the opposite sex without there being sexual connections and innuendos and all those things related to it.
All right, thank you very much. Let's come across the table to Reverend Plumley.
Yeah, I think one of the I really appreciate what both of y'all have had to say. I think one of the important pieces of this that I always draw out of conversations like this came out in what Dr. Trovall had to say, talking about the need for education of the students. I think by the time they get to college, it's too late. I think that has to happen at least in high school, and probably before that. I know in our church, we have a special program that we do in camp, in summer church camp, for all 8th graders, and there's some that say we're even too late when we do it then. But in 8th grade, we take those kids and teach them anatomy. We teach them respect, and we teach them mutual appreciation. We teach them boundaries, and it has to those. Without those things, we set the stage for this locker room mentality and the way that gets exacerbated in the campus, in the college campus setting, when, as you said, people are all of a sudden facing all this new freedom and wondering how to deal with it. Well, they got to be able to remember some things that they learned a long time ago, back in 8th grade or earlier, hopefully at home, but somewhere about respect for each other.
All right, thank you very much. And Rabbi Offsire, welcome back to our program today. And your position on the matter, if you would, please.
Well, my position has really already been articulated. We need to begin early when sexuality is appropriate in terms of the developmental level of children. Surely by 8th grade, those discussions need to begin, and it is only when those discussions will have taken place in a setting that's not threatening, that is loving, and that is the kind of setting that Tom Plumley has talked about, that there is less likelihood that as young people go through high school and come to the college campus where there is a great deal of freedom, they will be the kinds of thinking and feeling that would lead them to realize that whether it's male or female, relationships must be consensual, and there must be a sense of respect and mutuality with whatever those relationships are. Those need to be the underpinnings that give us a chance to lessen this kind of excessive, no, I don't mean excessive, this seemingly expanding plague of disrespect for personhood on college campuses.
Thank you for those thoughts. Let's come down the table now. Canon Peterson, welcome back, and your take on this, please.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Tom a question in relationship to what he just said in his statement a couple minutes ago. Can you tell a difference, or is there a difference between the people who are attending your camp at 8 years and 8th grade and those who have not, in relationship to, number one, the experiences they have in college and how they're able to ward that off, or even within high school, and the type of assaults that take place in high schools today? We're only speaking about colleges, but certainly we know males and females are being assaulted in high schools as well. Do you have any sense of that from what you said? It was such an interesting point you made.
The organization that does that for our church grew out of our churches, and I'm not sure, frankly, if they have tracked that sort of information. Their executive director happens to be my associate minister, and so I don't know the answer to that question, but I am aware that at least anecdotally, my experience of kids who have been through that kind of program are much less likely to be involved in some of the more crass attitudes toward, particularly men, young men, with these crass attitudes toward any woman, and women prepared to know how to say no and to know what that means and to feel okay about it. If people have knowledge, they are empowered to be able to do what they need to do to make the best decision.
I take you back to Canon Peterson. Do you want to make a further comment before we come up to Bishop Olson?
I would just like to make one comment in relationship to the moderator's statement, and I actually went online to get a sense of the university that is mentioned here but not mentioned by name, and I don't think it is appropriate to mention it by name.
Right.
But the types of things that they're now doing on their campuses, on their campus in particular, to be able to avoid and to be able to say no. And I found 3 of the different comments on their page to be quite interesting. I'd like just to share that with you. Coming from the first 2 are from men. I believe that women shouldn't have to be taught to dress to avoid rape. Men should be taught not to rape, period. Hear, hear. Isn't that a great statement? Yeah. Or 2, to rape someone is to forcibly obtain power over another one for one's own self-absorbed desires. It is not only wrong, but cowardly. Hear, hear. And the 3rd comes from a woman. I know the difference between wild and fun and wild and dumb.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Let's come up then to Bishop Olson. We haven't heard yet from you on this.
It's a very important topic and very troubling at the same time. I think a couple of things that, first of all, that rape, I think, is primarily it's a violent act before it's a sexual act. True. And I think we tend to come out of a practice that we characterize at first as something sexual, though it is obviously involves the forcible and violent mistreatment of people in a sexual way. I think also that there's a lot of anger behind this, more even than there is unchastity, I guess is what I would say. And I think we have to look at why are people so angry that they need to try to claim power this way. And I think we're finding also that there's a lot more of an aggressive society all the way around, predominantly, with all due respect, especially to the particular importance of this issue to women, as in articulated, but also there's an aggressiveness that's directed oftentimes at young men. And we're finding this, I think, even in other areas of like violent pornography and even that being used by women today. I think there's a very new era, and it requires us to step back and look, drawing from the best resources of our shared traditions.
Thank you very much for that counsel and advice. A crossover to Rabbi
I just wanted to add, if I may, that as I think about it, it reflects an enormous callousness associated with certain kinds of human beings. And this is just a kind of sense that I have that those, I'm thinking particularly of men, who are involved in aggressive kinds of sports where being a macho person is an absolute requirement, there is greater likelihood of those people, of those particular people, not being able to distinguish between what they're doing on the field of play and what they should not be doing in relationship with another human being, not in a game that requires of them what they otherwise do.
Thank you. Let's come back down the table to Dr. Lane.
I know of a similar program to the one you're talking about, Tom, among our churches, and one of the directors of that will say there's something to be said about a society that requires a 17-year-old to have gone through driver's education in order to operate a motor vehicle and not have had a serious discussion about what violent crime may be before they go on to college.
Before they can drive.
Yeah, before they can drive. Before they attend college. And there's something more here. It's a cultural issue. It's still taboo. It's still a secret. It's still something that no one wants to bring out in the open and talk enough about in terms of what are the boundaries, what is the correct behavior, what's too much. And the comments that you found from that particular college campus, university, is that's very encouraging, that you can begin to see young men articulate the problem that well.
All right, thank you. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this part of our program, but we will be back in just a few moments for the summations. In the meantime, please stand by for this important announcement.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you, Mark. I do appreciate hearing from you, and particularly the suggestions you might have concerning future programs. We've received a number of suggestions through the years, and we do take them seriously. We're not able to address them all, but we try to get to as many of them as we possibly can get to. So we're going to go to our summaries just now, and to do that, let's return to the gentleman to my right. And Bishop Olson, if you could begin, please.
Rape is a terrible crime. It is an act of violence perpetrated against someone who is in a vulnerable and weak position, especially when people are made even more vulnerable because of drugs or alcohol. It compounds the shame and the pain that it causes. Education needs to be fostered in this area, as well as inculcating respect for our fellow men and women.
Thank you very much. And now, Reverend Plumley.
Thank you. I do think that there are some things that college campuses can do in a proactive way. Some campuses that have experienced a drop in the rate of sexual assaults are those who do some educating, who do annual surveys of anonymous surveys of people's behavior, so they know exactly what's going on in the lives of their students, and institutions that work to build a positive attitude and a trusting attitude between students and administrators. I think that's very helpful as well, so that kids know that they have some place to go with their problems.
Thank you very much. Now, Canon Peterson.
Yes, I would argue that sexual assaults cannot be tolerated on a university or college campuses any more than it can be tolerated in the military. And I believe at this point here, there are parallels that can be drawn between the military as well as college campus assaults, etc. And I think one of the major problems here is simply the culture of cover-up. The culture of the police, for example, not being willing to really believe a woman. And I think that whole issue is an issue that has to be opened up and discussed.
We may have to come back to that in a future program. Thank you for bringing it up. Let's come across the table to Dr. Lane. Your summation, please.
There are some wonderful byproducts of an individual coming to know Christ and experiencing a change in their lives. The gospel teaches self-sacrifice, self-control, and self-restraint. And all those things can build a culture where instead of gratifying oneself at the expense of another, instead an individual learns to honor the personhood and the identity of another person rather than violating it.
Thank you, Dr. Lane. Now, Dr. Troval.
Yes, rape is an act of violence. It is a crime, as has been said. And the second question that was asked, I do believe it's the administrative task of a president and all the administration to ensure that men and women all feel safe on a university campus. And we all work very hard to make that happen. And we need, because we're fighting a lot of culture here, we need everyone's help in doing so, and want to enlist as many people as possible. It's important to us.
Thank you. And now Rabbi Ofsire.
It has been said before, but I want to reiterate. Rape is a crime of violence in a sexual context, but it is a crime of violence. And stepping back from it, we realize, and we find it very difficult to do so, that ours is a very violent society. Think of all the different kinds of crimes that go on, and each of them, or many of them, have an aspect of violence to it. When indeed a person is capable of committing a crime of whatever sort that is violent, why would that person not be why would that person not perhaps be a sexual predator as well? So we have to begin with ourselves, and a number of the excellent suggestions for the larger college campus and environment that we have been listening to.
Well, thank you very much for the insight and the wisdom that has been shared around this table today. And I hope that you, as you've watched this program, have been blessed and encouraged by it. And I feel compelled to say at this time that if you happen to have been the unfortunate, well, say victim of such crimes that we've discussed here today, I will encourage you to talk with someone who you trust. Go to your pastor, your priest, your rabbi, or someone who you can place your confidence in. And I certainly hope that you'll find the care and the help that you would need to help you get through. So thank you for tuning in today, and we look forward to meeting you again in the very near future. But for now, the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.